I, Ishmael, was one of that crew. My shouts had gone up with the rest. My oath had been welded with theirs. And stronger I shouted, and more did I hammer and clinch my oath, because of the dread in my soul. A wild, mystical, sympathetical feeling was in me. Ahab's quenchless feud seemed mine. With greedy ears I learned the history of that murderous monster against whom I and all the others had taken our oaths of violence and revenge. That, my friends, is from this book, Moby-Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. And this, my friends, is your Sunday Penguin for today. So welcome, my friends, welcome to the Rustic Vaughan Lodge, where today we are talking about this book, Moby-Dick. You might have heard of this book. It's a little bit famous, Moby-Dick. Many of you might have been forced to read this in high school, which must have been a terrible experience. Sorry, guys. Moby-Dick, I've read this 3 times in my life. The first time I read it, I was in my early 20s, and I didn't really appreciate it. I had great difficulty with this book the first time I read it. I mean, I was able to read it just fine. But this is basically an adventure story, which is what I wanted. But it's buried and merged in a bunch of chapters on whaling, really detailed chapters about whaling. Chapters about whales, and philosophical chapters that confused and bewildered me as a young man. Of course now, as an older man, they merely bewilder and confuse me. But at the time, I was unable to appreciate how all of this stuff in this book came together. And by the end of this book, I was thinking, Moby-Dick, please, just show up, Moby-Dick, and destroy the Pequod and everybody on it. Just kill everyone and end my suffering. That's how I felt the first time I read this book. The second time, I liked it a heck of a lot more. And now I like this book now. I really appreciate what this book is, from what I understand of it. There are things in this book I think that will always be beyond me. There are things in this book I don't really quite understand the choices in here sometimes, but that kind of makes it fascinating. This is kind of a fascinating book in a way. And it is one of those books, many classic books are like this, that you can go back to it again and again and get something different from it. This is really kind of a masterpiece. It is. As much as it might drive some of us readers crazy, it is a masterpiece. I mean, I don't know how you can deny that at this point. This is the story of Ishmael, a guy whose name I can never seem to pronounce correctly, who is sort of depressed. He gets depressed once in a while, Ishmael does. And when he does, he decides to go to sea. And this time he goes to sea in a whaling vessel, which was a mistake. But he did. He goes to sea in a whaling vessel. Now, before he does that, before he signs up, he goes to an inn. He's staying at an inn. And at the inn, he meets an islander, a cannibal, named Queequeg, who is a harpooner. He's a professional harpooner, Queequeg is. And he's a really interesting guy. He's covered in tattoos. We get like a little picture in this Penguin Deluxe edition of him. And so he is so different that he terrifies our man Ishmael for a bit. But then they become fast friends, really cozy buddies. These two become right away. And their friendship actually is one of the most interesting things in this book. I kind of wish there was more of it. We get quite a bit of it at the beginning, but then the book becomes concerned with other things. I don't know for sure, but I get the feeling Herman Melville started this book concentrating on one kind of thing, and then as he was writing, got cut up in other things. I could be wrong, but it kind of feels that way when you read it. So they go and they eventually sign up on the Pequod, a whaling vessel that is captained by Captain Ahab, whose name we all know. The one-legged Captain Ahab whose leg has been bitten off by Moby-Dick, the terrifying, gigantic, albino white whale. And Ahab has sworn revenge. He's going to get revenge on this white whale for what this whale did to him. And for all that this whale symbolizes, because this whale symbolizes a bunch of stuff. Both for Ahab and for us as readers, one gets the feeling. And so they go out on this, Ishmael and Queequeg go out on this whaling adventure, and there is a lot of adventure in here. But like I said, it's kind of every other chapter, it seems like, and it might be. Every other chapter in here is about something besides the story, it seems like. Any detail you want to know about whaling back then, you find out in this book. You get a lot of whaling information. And that actually kind of works. It didn't work the first time I read it, but since then, it does give everything a kind of sense of reality. It helps to immerse you in the world of the Pequod. The ship in this book, it's another word I can't pronounce. I don't know why. Some words I just can't say. But yeah, it does help to immerse you in the world of this story. There are philosophical chapters. There's a chapter on the whiteness of the whale, for example. A whole chapter about the whale being white and just what that means. I'm not sure what it means, and I've read that chapter 3 times. It seems to mean something about how the whale symbolizes either chaos or emptiness or the futility of existence. It's scary. It's one of the things that makes Moby-Dick scary. I mean, Moby-Dick is a giant monster whale, so he's pretty scary anyway. But yeah, this is all about Captain Ahab and his quest for vengeance and how his quest for vengeance has driven out everything else in this guy's life. He's obsessed. He has become obsessed with the white whale, which he must hunt down and destroy. And everybody else on this ship, they're just trying to go about their business. You know, they just want to make some money and do their jobs. And he's fine with that for a while, but as soon as he catches sight of the white whale, that takes priority. That takes priority over everything. And so he's willing to drag everybody else on this boat along on his quest for vengeance. They mean nothing. Only his quest for vengeance means something to Ahab. And as you see from that tiny little bit that I read, all the other sailors, they get dragged along totally, and they become a part of this. They sort of willingly join up with this quest of vengeance along with Ahab. They get caught up in things, you know. And of course, you know, is this going to end well? You can probably guess, even if you haven't read the book. I do recommend you read this book. A lot of times I've heard people on BookTube, when they're talking, they'll talk about certain books that they're intimidated by. War and Peace seems to come up more than once. I did a video of that, a couple of Sunday Penguins ago. Probably because of its length and the number of characters and things. But they're like, oh, War and Peace, oh, it intimidates me. War and Peace is it's not a difficult book to read and understand compared to this. This, I could see being intimidated by. It's not as long as War and Peace. It is a more difficult read. This can be a difficult book. If you read it and just try to figure out everything that's going on, if you're trying to comprehend all the philosophy in this, like the first time you read it, it could be difficult. I can see if you're really not into whaling, this might even be boring at times, certain chapters. But it's worth reading. I would say just go along for the ride when you read this. Don't try to figure everything out the first time you read it. Just go with it. If you go with it, then you start to figure it out. Then it just comes to you, some of the things Herman Melville is trying to say in this book. Not everything will. Like I said, I've read this 3 times and there are things I don't get about this book, which is why inevitably I will read it again. There are thousands of editions, it seems like, of Moby-Dick. Everybody, it's in the public domain, and it's a deep book. It's one of the greatest American novels. So there are hundreds and hundreds of editions, it seems like, of Moby-Dick. Everyone has a different introduction or afterwards, and they're all saying different things. I've read a few different introductions. I've read some different stuff about this book. Everybody is saying different stuff about this book. That's the way it goes when you have a book this complex. So don't even try to figure this out all the way. You'll just burn out your brain, because people have been trying to figure out this book for years and years, and no one seems to have managed it. I feel like. It's an enigma, this book. But it's worth reading because you get a lot out of it. It is a really good adventure story buried away in here. And it is a book that you're just going to think about. It's a book you're going to ponder. It's a book that will haunt your mind long after you read it. And it does immerse you in another world, and in another time, and in another place. A dangerous, savage world at times. You will meet many interesting characters. Sadly, you don't get to spend as much time with some of these characters as you'd like, because we're so caught up in this hunt for this whale. Moby-Dick being one of the most interesting characters in this book. It's really worth it. So if you're into classic literature at all, I kind of feel like you have to read it. You have to jump on board this whaling vessel and experience this for yourself. Like I said, I will read it again. I'll read it probably a few times in my life if I live long enough. And I'll probably never figure it all out, what Herman Melville is trying to say completely in this book. But it's great. And I like this edition too. This is the Penguin Deluxe edition. I got this great cover which seems to defy all laws of physics. I think that's the ocean there. This is a very strange composition on this cover. First of all, these whalers seem to be going in the wrong direction if they're trying to get this whale. They're heading back to their ship, I think, and the whale is going the other way. It's a very strange composition. I like it, but it's weird, and this on the back is a better image, I think. I like this one a lot, this image. Penguin Deluxe is a nice one to have. But there are 9 million editions that you can choose from. And all the introductions are going to say something different. But yeah, this should be something that you read eventually. If you haven't read it 2 or 3 times already, I find it really fascinating. It's a really interesting book. Yeah, Moby-Dick. What more can I say? I mean, everybody's talked about this book. I don't know that I have anything more new or interesting to say other than how I felt about it when I read it. So there you go. That's Moby-Dick. Read this book. Thank you for joining me once again for the Sunday Penguin. I'm up at the Rustic Von Lodge, so hopefully that the internet will be able to upload this eventually. It'll take like 3 hours, but we'll see. I will join you again once again tomorrow. I don't know that I'm doing a tag for Tag Tuesday. I don't know if I was tagged in anything. We'll see. We'll see what I do for my next video. Who knows? And then I've got Epic Comic Book Wednesday. I'm going to have a review later on this week for Legend. And then I'll have another ridiculous top 10 thing on Saturday. So I will catch you next time. Next time it will be here at the Rustic Fawn Lodge. Bye, guys.